want to talk a little bit about my relationship with Ronnie Coleman. I feel like that was like the highlight of the years of bodybuilding in the Olympia.
Mr. Olympia is the biggest stage for any bodybuilder in the world. It's the ultimate challenge for bodybuilders to prove they are the best. There have been several great rivalries on the biggest platform for bodybuilding. However, no one tops the biggest rivalry between 8-time Mr. Olympia Ronnie Coleman and 4-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler. Let's dive in and find out more. The bodybuilding rivalry between Cutler and Coleman. Bodybuilding rivalries are certainly a great way of generating interest in the sport. Relying solely on the idea that the endeavor itself will sell a boatload of tickets for an event like the Olympia is simply not enough to generate a tremendous amount of interest. In order to sell big shows like the Olympia to the masses, there needs to be some kind of storyline that will get fans fired up. In 2014, it was the rivalry between Phil Heath and Kai Green. In 2015, it was the fact that Kai Green would be unable to compete at the biggest show of the year. And 2016 featured a storyline on the return of veteran Kevin Levrone. But before all that, there was the rivalry between Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler. In the 2000s, Jay emerged as one of the top bodybuilders in the world. He won the Arnold Classic Championship 3 years in a row from 2002 to 2004. People now saw him as the rightful heir to Ronnie Coleman's throne. Cutler would finish second behind Ronnie 4 times before picking up his maiden Sando trophy in 2006. In 2001, Cutler found himself in the middle of a controversy as he tested positive for the use of banned diuretics at Mr. Olympia. After a legal battle, Cutler could regain his second-place finish at the event. Theirs is one of the most famous rivalries in bodybuilding, almost lasted a decade. Moreover, the whole time it was pretty neck-to-neck. Cutler first made his appearance opposite Coleman in 1999. However, the first time he came to considerable attention was during the 2001 Olympia, when he stood the runner-up. In contrast, many people felt he should have won some titles that were awarded to Coleman by the judges. However, by statistics, Coleman is still way ahead as he has won 8 titles. On the other hand, Cutler has managed to win only 4. But the interesting part is that Cutler has been the runner-up of the competition 6 times, which makes him one of the most consistent bodybuilders of all time. Their differences in training. Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler's epic battles established their rivalry as the greatest of the past generation. But just because these two legends share 12 Sandows between them doesn't mean they shared the same training philosophies. Here, we break down the differences and similarities between their training methods. Coleman is the rare pro bodybuilder who hits each major part twice per week, double the frequency of most champs. To get all those workouts in, he often works 2 body parts per session. For example, he trains the biceps immediately after the back. He also hits his shoulders that same day. Coleman does a moderate 12 to 14 sets per body part. Cutler follows a more typical once per week schedule for body parts, but he makes an exception to this rule for the back. Like Coleman, Cutler divides his back training into a thickness workout and a width workout, including the latter in his shoulder routine. Cutler states, "I'm a volume trainer and I always have been." Indeed, Cutler typically does 7 or 8 exercises and 20 to 24 working sets in his back thickness workout alone. Neither man is concerned with executing the precise textbook form prescribed by personal trainers. In fact, Cutler claims it would sometimes be dangerous for him to do so. Instead, he uses the best form for his physique, discovered through years of trial and error. Occasionally, this may mean a little extra motion and even what others might label bad form, but he does this to better focus on the targeted area, never to make reps easier. Likewise, Coleman has discovered the motions that best emphasize his muscles, sometimes adding a little extra jerk or sway. Both champs endeavored to get a full range of motion from stretch to lockout or near lockout for each rep. Throughout his bodybuilding career, Cutler has spent more time training alone than with a partner. Currently, due partly to his busy travel schedule, he sometimes trains with a partner and sometimes doesn't. Even when he trades sets with someone, however, the other guy is not a TP in the usual sense. Cutler does his workouts his way, and if a friend wants to tag along, help change weights, and spot him on his heaviest sets, he's welcome, but Cutler is fully capable of motivating himself. Usually he trained alone pre-contest to avoid distractions. In the early stages of his bodybuilding career, Coleman worked out with partners, but the man who would be king eventually grew too strong for anyone to keep up with. Whether at home or on the road, he rarely trades sets with anyone. Cutler discloses the reality behind his rivalry with Coleman. Coleman and Cutler was one of the most intense rivalries in the history of Mr. Olympia. although Coleman defeated Cutler many times. But in the end, his perseverance worked, and he beat the mighty Coleman in 2006. Jay Cutler once opened up on his YouTube channel about the relationship Jay shared with Ronnie Coleman. Moreover, he revealed how the magazines at that time played a substantial role in creating the image of their relationship in the public mind. Did Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman hate each other? This question might not be that important now, but once, it is still a vast question among bodybuilding fans. The intense rivalry they had on stage didn't reveal much, as it was a professional platform. There were no social media back then. As a result, a person could not acknowledge his emotions at once to millions like in current situations. Cutler revealed why people thought Ronnie and Jay hated each other. He said, "You know, people question because the magazines back then built this up to kind of hate each other, and the truth of the matter is, I don't think we had respect for each other, but we weren't really necessarily friends. We didn't call each other on the phone," he added. "But my first experience, just so you guys know, was, I completed the Olympia first time in '99. Ronnie won his second that year at Mandalay Bay, and his first one-on-one experience over call was when Ronnie called him to congratulate him for winning the Night of Champions." Jay Cutler reflects on beating Coleman to win Mr. Olympia. After years of being the perennial runner-up, Jay Cutler was able to dethrone the great Ronnie Coleman and win the Mr. Olympia a decade and a half later. He reflects on that moment and what it meant to him. The onstage career of Cutler has two fairly distinct parts. What most people know him for is the fact that he was able to win 4 Mr. Olympia titles across 5 years, only briefly disrupted by Dexter Jackson in between. However, there was also the part of his career where Jay seemed to always be the bridesmaid, but never the bride. Between 2001 and 2005, the Massachusetts-born bodybuilder found himself coming in second place at every single event he competed in. After this run of second-place scores, Jay Cutler was finally able to win 2006 Mr. Olympia, breaking the legendary Ronnie Coleman's 8-year reign as champ. Speaking in an interview, Jay explained just how much this moment meant to him. He started off by going on record to say that Ronnie Coleman was the greatest bodybuilder to ever do it, and he looked up to the legend. He then explained that after being second for so long, it took him a while to come to terms with the fact that he won. Cutler goes on to explain that top bodybuilders were portrayed as perfect in magazines, so there was a certain expectation that fans had when they met him. However, he knows that all of these bodybuilders had their own issues going on behind the scenes and were far from the perfect expectations set before them. So that makes him appreciate the vulnerable moments that he had early in his career before he found success. It is crazy to look back on the career of Jay Cutler and see how far he came. His story is nothing short of motivational, and even years later, it is incredible to hear him reflect on these moments. Chiefly, there was a rivalry between the two greats of the sport. To follow, there stood an abundance of mutual respect, and there might be a tinge of friendship somewhere. But the one thing that never stood between these two legends was hatred towards each other. Do you think this is the greatest rivalry in bodybuilding history? That's all for today's video. See you next time.